Christi Fraga, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Great to be here again.
All right, so first of all, you had a unique journey in Doral, and then you went downtown, so to speak.
Yeah.
So tell us about your experience in Doral years ago.
So I've lived in Doral for over 20 years, where I grew up. It's where my family lives, where I'm raising my family, where I decided to open up my businesses, and so where I decided to serve and start my journey into public service. So it's been a great experience. I love my community. I've been a part of the growth that we've had. I was elected at 24 in 2012, and so that was kind of my first steps into public service. Something I fell in love with. Fell in love with that.
So you were elected to the Doral Council.
Yes.
When you were 24.
I was 24.
How old was the city then?
We were just about to celebrate 10 years. So I celebrated the 10 years, I think, the next year. So the city was incorporated in 2003, and this was 2012. So the next year we celebrate 10 years, so 9 years old.
So you served the city for how long?
I was there for 8 years. I did 2 periods as a council member. And then when my term was coming to an end in 2020, I did consider running for mayor at that time, but Mayor Bermudez announced that he was going to run for re-election. And so the school board seat, Susie Castillo, had decided not to run for re-election. And a lot of parents asked me, go and support us at the school board, be our voice. I was very involved already at the schools. My son was just going into kindergarten. So it made a lot of sense. And it gave me an opportunity to learn new government, a larger government, something completely different. I enjoyed that experience tremendously. It was an incredible way to kind of get out of just Doral and the municipal services. But my heart was still in Doral. I know the municipal side. It's what I did for 8 years. It's really what I studied as far as accounting, and I like the local government. Being on the school board and in the time that I was in the school board was incredible. It was COVID, new superintendent, ARPA money. So it was a great experience. I always wanted to complete that term. There was never an intention of leaving early. But when Mayor Bermudez announced to run for county commission halfway through the term, I had to make a decision. And I always knew my heart was still in Doral, and I was still representing Doral, but there was a lot going on at the city level that I was not happy with, that I was very vocal about, that I knew I still could be a big part of. And I just had to really analyze where I was going to best serve my community with my capabilities and experience. And so that's why I decided to return to Doral and really focus on where my passion was and what I knew best and where I knew I could better serve my community, encompassing the schools and education and the youth and everything I was doing at the school board.
So on the school board, there's 13 members.
There is 9.
9?
Yeah.
Why did I think 13?
Because that's the county commission.
Oh,
We actually have larger districts than the county commission.
So it's a group of 9?
Yeah.
Versus a group of
5.
All right.
Piece of cake, walk in the park.
So what was it like the moment you said, okay, I'm going to resign my position with the school board, which I campaigned for, and I'm here, and I like doing that. I'm still
tough.
Serving the people.
Yeah.
And to weigh that out and say, yes, I'm going to do that.
It was really tough. It was not an easy decision. And I'll tell you, even after after I won the first round that we went into a runoff, I actually went into a depression, because I was not really, but just mentally it was hard, because I actually really enjoyed what I was doing at the school board. But it was an evaluation of where I could best serve my community. And I was really not happy with what was taking place at the city. And I knew that I could do it better. And I really had a plan that I had even initiated from when I was a councilwoman that I wanted to see completed. And so my heart was leaning in that direction from the beginning. And I'll tell you, my business feeds my family, but public service feeds my soul. And so I had to do what I felt that I really was going to be 100% passionate about. And I felt that going back to the city, I could do both. I could do the education and the families and everything I was doing at the school board, and really encompass the whole city and everything I knew and the experience I had. So I felt like that part was missing, and that I didn't complete that at the city, and this was my opportunity to do that. Now, I knew I was risking it all, but I was okay to risk it all, knowing that I was going to end up doing what I loved more than anything.
So you must be feeling pretty fulfilled at this point.
I do. I mean, I have a lot to accomplish, because now comes the real work, right? I was telling this to my husband the other day. The pressure of a campaign is totally different than the pressure of the actual work. I think I actually prefer the pressure of the campaign.
So you
than
made
the
some
pressure
you
of
made
the
some
work.
commitments. You told people you're going to
Yeah.
do certain things.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about a couple of those and what you're doing to accomplish those?
So, well, this morning I was in a 4.5-hour meeting about Doral Central Park. This was one of my big items on the campaign trail. Every door I knocked on asked me about this park. So I know how important it is to the community. I know how much our community values parks, how much we invested into this bond of $150 million. And I'm very disappointed, to be honest, on where we are. I actually left that meeting very disappointed in some of the decisions that were made along the way and weren't brought to the public. And I'm going to do that now. So we will have a meeting February 8th where we are going to basically show what I walked into, how far along in the project we actually are, how over budget we are, and how we're going to try and trim that back with meeting the expectations of the residents. And then I'm going to do town hall meetings. I'm going to take this out in a tour to the community because they need to know. They need to know what's happened. They need to know what I'm dealing with and what I plan to do to deliver to them the product that they deserve and that they were promised in 2018. And so that's my job now, and I'm going to own up to what needs to get done. But first, we have to recognize what we can fix and what we can't.
And I think that you have it right. The people want to know.
Yeah.
Besides, they deserve to know. They want to know.
Absolutely.
And it's in that transparency.
That's all they asked for was
Right.
transparency the entire time, and that's one of the things I talked about a lot during the campaign. One of the items on the bond question was that we were going to have a citizen oversight committee. That committee hadn't met since 2019, and they only met once. And this bond is almost going into year number 4. You have 6 projects that have been completed. Where is the citizen oversight? Where is the involvement? And that's all people were asking for. That's what all I was asking for. And so I'm naming a bond committee immediately, and we're going to make sure that they meet, and I'm going to hold them accountable as I expect them to hold me accountable, and I expect the community to hold us accountable. And I'm going to hold the people that were there accountable too.
So things that people want to know about is mobility throughout the cities and the state and the county and throughout the country. Talk about the mobility.
So mobility is, to me, has to do with infrastructure, right? So when I talk about infrastructure, a lot of people tell me, you don't talk a lot about traffic. And I'm like, I do talk about infrastructure. One of my top #1 campaign topics was infrastructure. You can't have mobility if you don't have infrastructure. And what's happened is that our infrastructure and the way Miami-Dade and South Florida was designed, so very little infrastructure for this mobility. I found ways to think outside of the box as a councilwoman. I implemented the Doral FIU trolley route, which is basically a direct route into FIU from Doral. And we actually got grant money funded for the first 3 years of the project because it was connecting that final mile, which is a big deal in South Dade, in South Florida, Miami-Dade, is that we have transit, but that final mile connection is very difficult because we're not a very walkable community. We're trying to build walkability around infrastructure that already exists, which is hard in South Florida when it's hot, it rains. You need to have infrastructure for public transportation, like covered bus benches, having dedicated bus lanes. If not, you're leaving the convenience of your car to be in the same traffic you would be, but in a bus. Nobody wants to do that. Yep. So there's a lot of technology that we can implement that I'm looking at, as far as infrastructure goes for traffic lights to help with the flow of traffic. There's a reconfiguration of our trolley routes, which I'm working on. Infrastructure of covered bus benches. We just expanded Freebie to Teslas so that you can actually go to a wider area and it's quicker. So there's a lot of things that we're kind of studying and looking at. There's roads that we need to open and expand so that you have turn-only lanes, so that you're not stopping traffic from flowing.
A lot of people take the trolley.
In our city, yes. But it's tough. You're not seeing the executives, which it's going to be tough to see that too. But you see a lot of high school students, but I think you could see more of that younger generation that is workforce. You're seeing a lot of housekeepers and stuff that come from outside using it. We have to make it more efficient and more reliable. Our app is not reliable. Again, it rains every day. You don't have covered bus benches. It's hot. And then you've got these routes that to me are tours of Doral versus efficiently getting you from point A to point B, which is what I did with the Doral FIU trolley. So it's a direct route. So I want to create more of a grid system where you have trolleys crossing on every major intersection, so you know you're going to get from point A to point B by crossing at an intersection. And we've actually studied that when I was a councilwoman. We didn't implement it because it was a lot more costly than what we currently have. But I think with the infrastructure we've laid so far, we have the ability to do it.
We know that it takes planning and implementation can take years and years for that to work.
It's the problem with government.
Yes, and we think about the busway, the south end, the 20 some odd miles.
Yeah.
I mean, that has been years and years in the works, and finally getting that done with county and state and federal support. Let's talk about your newest hospital out there.
Jackson West.
Yes.
Funny story, and I don't promote this enough. And it's not about promotion, right? But I don't talk about it enough. But it's a great memory for me. And actually, Carlos Migoya recognized me at the groundbreaking of that. But that hospital, I found the land for that hospital for them.
Where you used to get your TVs and computers a long time ago.
Yeah. So I remember them coming to me and saying, we want to build a hospital in West Dade. We think Doral is perfect. This was like in 2014. 2015, and so I said, let's find a piece of land in Doral, and that's what we did.
And sometimes those answers are right in front of us.
Yeah.
But because something's existing in there, sometimes we don't see past
it. Well, there's a lot of, I think, redevelopment opportunities in Doral. When I talk about infrastructure, I talk about this too. Doral is a very new city. We're going to be actually celebrating 20 years this year, which will be looking at how to really celebrate our successes.
By the way, we're going to be doing a special section in honor of Doral.
Oh, yeah?
As we
awesome.
have in South Miami.
Yeah.
Pinecrest.
Well, it's 20 years. First woman mayor, which is a big deal. Yeah. Right? And so we're celebrating 20 years. So we're really going to look at how we're going to celebrate and acknowledge all the people that were a part of it and highlight its incredible successes. But we're also going to look at its challenges going into the next 10 years, the next 20 years. And I think that there's an incredible opportunity to look at redevelopment in certain areas because we do have a lot of old infrastructure, which is where you see a lot of the flooding. And so I think that there's opportunity to be very intelligent about what types of businesses we're attracting, how we're going to protect and preserve our industrial areas, which allow the city to have its low tax base. I'm looking at annexation and how we create new revenue for the city. So there's a lot of interesting things happening.
You hate to bring it up, but the county has a facility out there that converts trash into energy.
The incinerator,
right?
That's another big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that it drives that particular plant is from garbage, and also City Homestead out there. We frequently hear people talking about things they don't like, just like the people when they move near the airport, then they complain about the planes. We've
got both.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, I know it's tough, and it's not the perfect scenario in the sense that it's hard to have bought a $2 million home with an incinerator right behind it that generates smell and stuff. So obviously, the end alls, we want it moved. We don't want to see that in our city, but I know that's a big ask, and it's a hard bucket to lift. But it's the county's. That is the county's facility. And look, we all generate trash, so we have to find a solution for it. We have to find how we make this work in an urban city, Miami-Dade County in general. I think we need to look at it as a regional approach in South Florida. The commissioner, who was our former mayor, also made a lot of campaign promises, and one of them was to relocate it out of our city. I really hope he meets that promise and that he fulfills that.
So that might be one of those projects. It's going to take a while for that to happen, but as long as people can look at it and say, here's things that we don't like that we'd like to try to see if we can fix and take care of, maybe that's it. On the other end of it, what is the city going to do about beautifying the city?
That's one of them, right? Look, as far as the incinerator goes, what I hope to see in the next year, and I want to be at the table to be able to be a part of that. And like I said, I think if we look at it as a more regional approach, we'll be more successful. But we do need a long-term plan, and then we need to start acting immediately, so that the residents know that this is a top priority. This isn't just about aesthetics anymore; it's also about health. and that technology is very outdated. So I'm looking forward to that being a top priority to deal to work with the county and the county mayor as well as our county commissioner on that, because politics aside, really we need to find a solution. As far as beautification, our city, like I said, is going through, so there's a master Doral Boulevard plan that's being executed. I think for us, beautification has always been a top priority. Even when I was a council member, we actually have grants that if you beautify your building, we'll give you matching funds up to $10,000. And I actually think that was even increased. I'm still wrapping my head around some of the changes that have happened over the last 2 years. So I may have misspoken there. It may be actually more money now, but I have to check on that. So I think that there's a lot of great opportunity for continuing to beautify our city. As a city, we take pride in that, and we want to continue to also encourage the business owners and residents. We have now expanded, or when I was there, we expanded the beautification grants to even homeowner associations. So if you wanted to redo like the front of your, the entrance features to your communities, because we have a lot of closed communities, you could also take advantage of those funds. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue beautifying, making a more walkable city. And like I said, I'm seeing that there's a lot of interest for redevelopment, being very careful and making sure that it is sustainable, it is practical, that it is controlled growth. We're all for that.
So we know that people are important, parks are important, and police are important. Tell us about the police department and
I'm so excited about the
some
police department.
things you'd like to see happen.
I'm so excited about the police department. I don't know if you know who our new chief is. It was just announced, and actually it's going to be on the council meeting tomorrow. But Edwin Lopez, who is the chief of police at the school board, the school board chief of police, has graciously accepted the offer of our city manager to come be our chief of police. And I'm very excited about that because he understands community policing, he understands families, he understands a community like Doral that where proactiveness to safety is important. We want to rebuild a narcotics unit and be more proactive about that. I wanted to see a fraud unit. We have a lot of, unfortunately, fraud that happens, even HOA fraud. So I think we'd be a lot more proactive about how we police and how we service. I think police is a big part of educating residents too. We're a dynamic community that's very multicultural, people that come from all over the world, not just South America, or Latin America, but they do as well. And it's important that they understand the laws and how to be good residents and good citizens. And I think that police does a big part of that. And I think that someone like Edwin, who is young and eager to be out in the community and be out with his police officers and change the morale, is going to lead us into a better community policing department. And so that's what I'm excited about, and I can't wait to be a part of that. And I think that our residents are willing and able to value the work that our police officers do, understanding that they're there to do a service and to make sure that our city remains safe, but is also proactive about respect and the laws that we have. I have a zero tolerance for when it comes to when it comes to crime and order.
Good.
Yeah.
And because homeowners and businesses want to know and feel protected and that it's safe.
And that's the other thing with our community. It's not just the residents. We have a super booming business, and commercial industries. So
I think that Doral,
want to work with them.
Doral, if not the top city in Miami-Dade County, certainly the top couple. Sorry, Coral Gables.
I'm biased. I think we are the top city in Miami-Dade County right now as far as growth and opportunity and, like I said, redevelopment. I think that there is a lot of potential in Doral.
Let's talk a little bit about arts and culture, what's going on in Doral. And as you know, the county opened up the Westchester Cultural Center in Tropical Park, really tremendous opportunity for artists to go there and people to feel good about where they are. So tell us about what's going to be happening.
With all due respect to all the rest, again, I think Doral is going to be the cultural hub of Miami-Dade County for two reasons. One, we've got a lot of talent. We are extremely cultural driven because of the heritage that we bring from our Latin roots, as well as very multicultural as a community. But we also now have our cultural arts facility, which is an incredible facility that was built even with what we didn't get, because it was going to be even more amazing. But even with what we didn't get, it's still something that we need to program and really highlight and promote. But also, we're now building an amphitheater, which, again, I was not on board for. I think that it's a big cost for a small city. But now that I have to own it, because it's what was left for me, we're going to make sure that we program the heck out of that, so that we are getting the bang for our buck, and making sure that Miami-Dade County as well as Doral is performing, is being known for its performances and for the culture. And this is going to be a covered amphitheater with 600 covered seats outdoors, with an event lawn behind it that can hold an additional like 800 people, where we can have some incredible performances. And, my concern with it, realistically, was one, making sure we can maintain it, because we're going to have to really program it. Two, that we had the ability to hold that many people in the park. We really don't have enough parking, so we're going to have to find like creative parking strategies to be able to like bring people in for these events. And that the rest of the park won't be able to really be utilized while we're programming this. And for it to be successful, it's going to have to be programmed a lot of weeks out of the year. So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I was left with, and I'm gonna make it work now, because now I have to. But it will be amazing. I mean, it is an incredible opportunity to have an amphitheater like that really we don't have anywhere else in Miami-Dade County, and the technology that'll be installed in it and everything. So it's in our city. I'm gonna do the best to make sure that it's successful. Even though I really wasn't gung-ho about this, because it's costing our city a lot of money, and if we're gonna invest in it, we gotta make sure it functions.
One of the things about Doral is you have from the smallest business to some of the world's largest that call it home. Mm-hmm. And so in the state of Florida, and particularly the 3 counties down here, affordability for housing is the number one issue. We know the county is pushing a lot to provide more housing, and downtown and Coral Gables is another animal with very expensive things already in the works. And it's almost an oxymoron, affordable housing. It's just like how that it's completely changed from when we were much younger. Affordable was many thousands of dollars less.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as affordability in Doral for housing?
Not right now, but it's definitely a conversation that's been had, and is being had all throughout Miami-Dade County. It's necessary. The inventory we need as a county and as a community very much tells us that we need to have some of that inventory, because we're going to lose our workforce, and that's not good for the economy and the community that we have evolved to being, right? And we're going to lose a lot of our young workforce. We want to keep the talent we're cultivating in our community to be able to feed the businesses that we're trying to attract, right? This is like a domino effect. So you have to look at it in different ways. And Miami-Dade County and Doral particularly has become very expensive. So I'll tell you, the couple of like people that have come to see me for certain redevelopments, I'm like, I want to see 2 things: senior living, and I want to see workforce housing, some component of it. That's what I'm asking for. Not to an absurd scale, okay? This is not for anybody to freak out. I'm not asking for 18-story buildings with all workforce housing. No, we're talking about maybe a development of 250 to 300 units that they provide workforce housing within that project. And these are areas that are gonna be redeveloped because it calls for it. So, and I'm not identifying any project in particular at this point, but there's been discussions about it already. It is a necessity in Miami-Dade County, and I can tell you that anybody that comes to our city, I'm going to look at what inventory we need to make sure we're a successful community into the future, that we're maintaining the different generations, because in addition to being a multicultural community, we're multi-generational. Because of our heritage and our culture, our families like to stay together. In my case, I'm generations of my family living in Doral, grandparents, parents. I have cousins, aunts, uncles. We're all there, and we want to stay close. Latin families like to stay close together and close by. So I've seen it as I've grown in Doral, and as I've been involved now for a little over 10 years, is that I'm seeing the seniors displaced, or what happens is the seniors want to be able to get out of their 4-bedroom home and go into somewhere where it's smaller, where they can age in place, but the service doesn't exist in the community, and they want to stay in Doral. So we need to provide that inventory so that it frees up the single family home inventory without creating new construction or new developments so that it's available to these first-time home buyers or these young families. But then you have the component of the single young executive or the workforce, the firefighter, the nurse, the couple that doesn't have a family yet, but they love Doral. They see this as their future home, but they can't afford anything. So they're living with their parents or they're just having to leave. So I think that those are the two categories of inventory that we do need, not just in Doral, but Miami-Dade County.
I'm sure you were on the school board when the school board decided to take 5 underutilized elementary schools and to turn them into apartments for teachers, including one that's down the street from here.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with that. And then there's also
well, because we were also losing, and this is something that I think people know just throughout the United States and particularly here, teaching has become a very needed field, and we're not seeing enough teachers. There's a shortage. So you have to find, because there's such little money in education as far as like funding, which is very sad to me, but it was a struggle that I saw. And as an accountant looking at it, I was like mind blown. But there's such little funding in education. You need to find other ways to be creative to provide benefits to these teachers to want to stay in the community.
There's a charter school that's nearby. They have an expansion plans that includes a charter school.
Oh, here?
Nearby in South Bay.
Okay. I thought you were in Doral. I was like, not that I know of.
The expansion plan includes 1-bedroom apartments for the teachers.
Well, that was actually a discussion when downtown Doral Charter School was built. And I have to get back in and find out what happened. But there was a discussion at one point to provide that to the teachers in those schools as well. And it's been a discussion for a while because again, you have to find ways to be creative to provide a benefit and something attractive to the teaching industry.
The county recently passed an ordinance that in unincorporated Dade County, you are now by right be able to put up another structure in your backyard and be able to rent it. So that for generational housing or for renting out. And one of the arguments was, wait, so the rich people in Pinecrest can have a maid's quarters.
Yeah.
Why can they do that and we can't do that?
Yeah, I hear.
So that's certainly one of the ways that the county's dealing with our housing issue. So one of the things that has come up recently with the pandemic, people got a lot confused. A lot of people feel lonely and depressed. And now that is the current event is from the crisis point over, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress that is going on. And people are wondering where they go for help, and especially if you don't come from a background for asking for help. Maybe the city could have a resource center.
That was one of my campaign promises.
Okay,
actually.
so let's hear about it.
Yeah, so one of the things I talked about a lot was having an information and resource center. One of the things I noticed, again, being a very immigrant-based community, multi-generational, multicultural, was lack of information and understanding of how our system works, what's available. I experienced it a lot on the school board. I actually would get calls, just simple questions like, how do I enroll my child in school? Something that you would think was everybody kind of knew how to do. And so I realized that there was no centralized location for this type of information. And so I talked a lot about creating an information and resource office where you have 2 or 3 very well-trained staff members that are, customer service oriented, that would kind of centralize all this and then work with agencies and organizations that already exist to be able to provide the service to the community. So like DCF, or Department of Children and Families, for those who may not know, work with Workforce Florida. There's a lot of different organizations and even like private organizations, like for domestic violence and things like that, where you could have this in the centralized office. For example, DCF come twice a month and you knew that they were there, have the licensing department come and they were there, and then it would have easy accessibility to the community, but also a phone call. Instead of calling, you're getting 311, you're getting this center. Listen, I need to understand what district I fall in for school. Then they could tell you, well, you're District 5 and here's your school board member, call them, and these are the schools per your address as a school that you belong to. So centralized information. Same thing, somebody who needs to find resources because they need mental health counseling or whatever it is. It's not that the city is going to provide this service for you.
Right.
It's that we're going to help you find the resources that are available through different organizations and agencies that already exist that will make you a more, a better, citizen. And
We have about 30 seconds
Yeah.
left. One of the things that we work closely with Chapman Partnership,
Mm-hmm.
with NAMI, National Organization for Mental Illness,
Mm-hmm.
Children's Trust,
I know them,
and,
yeah,
several,
very well.
and several other ones. I'm sure that they can help provide a resource
Mm-hmm.
direction to be able to be available for that.
Yeah.
Mayor Fraga, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
And continued success to you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you over there.
Thank you.
And Alex, thank you very much for producing the show. Again, our guest
Thank
today,
you,
the Doral Mayor, Christi Fraga. Thanks again for your time. Folks, enjoy yourself.